The entire idea for this podcast has been Swetanshu Bora's. He said that I should talk to uh, people and talk to them about mental health, especially he said first in acting, and then the idea just grew from there. So, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today I'm talking to my childhood friend, someone I've known since we were 10 years old, Swetanshu Bora, who is now a theatre actor and also a playwright. And I'm going to let him introduce himself. Welcome, Swetanshu.
Hi, yes, thank you for having me. Yes, I'm an actor and a playwright and a film actor and a theater actor. I've been a theater actor for like 2 decades now, and only now sort of started doing film work as such, and ad work and all that. I also do audiobooks for Audible, so I'm a voiceover actor as well. And I'm just an artist. That's all. Yeah,
Amazing.
fun.
And, and you did have a career as an IT person before. So, I mean, just
Yes, a long time ago, like for 5 years. So I did engineering because I was in Bangalore, and I worked at a very nice IT firm actually at the time for 5 years. It was a startup, and it was quite exciting, working with really fun people who really sort of liked the fact that I was doing theater and all of that stuff. And I left my that job in 2010, and since then I've been sort of full time doing being a full time artist, and I've done a bunch of plays, I've directed and written a bunch of plays, and I've sort of won some awards here and there for it, and that's it.
so I'm going to get right to it. Um, as an actor, what are some of the mental health challenges that show up a lot in your work?
I mean, I think I'd like to get to the definition of mental health at some point. I think we'll arrive at it. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing which I think any actor, whether starting out or in the business for a while, will tell you is insecurities. That you're surrounded by deep insecurities. Um, uh, First and foremost, you're always questioning whether you're talented enough to be here, whether you'll book the next job. You can always go out of vogue at any point. You may not be required. You don't know why you're being rejected. So you're sort of that is the biggest one that comes to bite. It sort of comes straight to attack your sense of self. Fundamentally, because see, acting in our country is still looked at as sort of a secondary thing that you can do. If you can be a banker and do acting on the side, which is perfectly fine. Actually, it's really okay. But if you're going to be an actor full time, you really have the onus of proving that you can lead a quote unquote normal life and not a hippie life. Being an actor, which can be stressful because a lot of actors who are not, let's say, famous actors, not your Netflixes and Amazon Prime actors, they have regular families, they're having children, sending them to school. You may not notice it, but they're also standing at the bus stops and putting their kids under the bus and figuring out how the fees will be paid later. Beautiful lives who are sort of dedicated to to acting and therefore face those challenges of saying, how am I going to make the next buck? So the biggest challenge is a deep sense of insecurity that hits you to say, am I going to make it? Am I good enough? Will people like me? That's why you find a lot of actors tend to become people pleasers, and then that's a bad route to go down because yeah, you're bound to face harassment of some sort, both men and women. Not just sexual harassment, but also pride and people treating you badly, that kind of harassment. So everybody goes through it. I think everybody has a bite of that where you feel not valued at some point, and I think it's really important to ground yourself at that point. Yeah.
When we look at a film, we look at something that's been completed, that's made it. When we go watch a play, we're looking at something that has been rehearsed, that has been done. It's like we're only watching the final product. What goes behind it, and all of the sweat and the tears and all the
Hmm.
rejection, and also like it's so sad because I guess this is what it is. This is what I've learned from everybody who's in the artistic profession is that there's no I mean, if it's math, if it's something like code, you can say, okay, this is where the problem is, this is where your
Right.
error is. But here
Right.
it's like, I don't like it, and I don't know how to explain why I don't like it.
Yeah, to say to even say I don't like a piece of art. Now it could be a painting, for example. You could maybe I've made a painting, and Subi comes and says, "Look, I don't like it," and I think that's a fair response. I don't think you're obligated to explain further why.
Mm.
But if you could, but what could be nice is if people sort of articulated why they don't like it, because that's quite
Mm.
interesting.
Mm.
Why don't you like it? What is it? I don't know. The colors don't really. I don't like the color. Why don't you like the colors? I don't know. Like, why is the gray next to the orange? Like, what? I mean, if you really want to, and that's the thing about art, because if you really go looking why you don't like the piece of art, you might understand something about yourself.
About yourself.
But I'm saying if you really engage with a piece of art, and especially if you don't like it, then you can get to know a lot of stuff about yourself in some ways.
So you said that you really have to ground yourself, which brings me to my
Hmm.
next question is like, how do you get through these challenges? As an actor, I'm guessing you don't exactly have like a professional organizational support, or do you? What systems do you have to lean on?
Oh yeah, so you don't. Yeah, you don't actually. Family and friends is first and foremost, and if you have a partner, that's first and foremost somebody who kind of understands your journey and supports your journey. Now that could be family, that may not also be your family. It could be friends, and I think that's your biggest support, who kind of help you get through it. What acting teaches you different is to stand up for your own self. At the end of the day, at some point, you'll have to build um, a resilience in some way,
Mm.
build to kind of, because you can't sometimes rely on your support system all the time, because there are also people who have their own thing. So sometimes as an actor, you have to build resilience, you have to laugh it off, you have to yeah, you have to be chill about it, and you have to start building a system where you can not be very affected by a bad review, let's say, or somebody said, oh, he's a bad actor or she's a bad actor, and that can really hurt your esteem, and just to kind of let it be,
Yeah.
to accept rejection, because it's full of rejections. I mean, I face rejection as a writer and as an actor. I have a double whammy, so it's like I'm great at taking rejections now. I'm fantastic. I love it.
What
Well,
do
I
you
don't
love
love it,
about it?
but yeah, I don't love it. That's an extension. But I I'm used to it. I'm fine with it. I can cope with it.
Everything that you said is so good, like building that resilience, um, staying positive, and also, I guess the big thing is learning to essentially cope with this idea that people are going to choose what they decide to choose, and your idea or your
Yes.
talent might not be what they need at that moment. Do you see any differences, like with your other actor friends and colleagues? Is there any difference how mental health challenges show up across your different genders, different orientations, different religions, ability?
Yeah, I think, I think maybe Subuhi, you can talk a little bit about this, because there is a running debate now in terms of what is a mental health issue versus what is a situation that is just slightly stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think what has also happened is, in the industry, the one good thing that happened was people became more aware of mental health, saying that, hey, listen, you cannot be abusive towards somebody. All right,
Mm.
that's not cool anymore. All right, I mean, forget Me Too and sexual harassment. I'm saying just basic abusive towards a cameraman or somebody, or a member of staff. You cannot do that. Versus, and of course, these meant, just to answer your question, I think what I have seen definitely is stressful situations arising due to different diverse backgrounds. So like gender, you said, or maybe sexual orientation or stuff like that, caste, uh, different sort of issues propping up when we're making a play or a piece of work together. Quite simply, like I'll give you a situation. I was working with a I've now worked with two actresses who had very young kids. The babies were just under a year old or something, and I think we had to move around a lot for rehearsals because of that, because that made their schedules very unpredictable, because it
Mm.
could very well be that the baby is just not letting go of the mother on the day. And it's also very stressful for the actress, because she's then calling me and saying, and deeply apologetic and saying, I just don't feel like I can leave. And so as a director, I'm like, or as a co-actor, sometimes I'm like, that's fine. We'll find something else. We'll do something else. So definitely, I've seen people come in with a variety of issues that they're tackling, and they need a support system. And I think the theater troupe kind of provides a support system. In a theater community, we always have that bring your kids, like bring the bacha. So in a lot of rehearsals, if the kid is able to attend, of course, it's not one to they come and sit in a rehearsals. They get bored as hell, the kids, and then the kids themselves say, I don't want to attend this rehearsal ever again. But we're a very inviting space to say, bring the bacha. Somebody will play with. Jiska scene nahi chal raha hai. Somebody will be there to look after your kid. Don't worry. We'll all bring them up together as much as possible. And that is the beautiful thing about community that we had, I suppose, earlier, which theater tries to maintain, to say all the kids of the theater people are our kids.
That's really beautiful. Like it's you've still maintained that village, the village that it takes
We
to,
try. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We try.
yeah. How have your own challenges show up the way you show up for other people?
Yeah, well, mostly my technique is to kind of mostly listen. Number one, I listen to them, but at the second time, but secondly, I also give sort of very, uh, I don't sweet talk too much. Like I'm like, listen, if you feel that, uh, if you're feeling that you're not a good actor or a writer, do something else and
Hmm.
come back to it.
Hmm.
We tend to have the thing is, Subuhi, that there's been a myth, partly true, partly untrue, to say that you have only this much time to make it as an artist.
Hmm.
Within by your 20s, you should be something, 30s, you should be something, 40. There is actually no such thing, in the sense you can make art whenever you feel like, wherever
Hmm.
you feel like, and people will come watch. It depends on
Hmm.
what your relationship with your art is, actually. If your relationship with your art is that I want to be a very famous person, actually,
Hmm.
I want to be Ranveer Singh, or then, yeah, you tread that path, and it's going to be difficult and all that, and you have to be a certain type of person to do that. But if you want to make art because it helps you sort of answer some questions, or it helps you deal with some things in life, you enjoy it mostly because you enjoy doing it, then it's lifelong. Then there is no bus to catch, you know. And so even people who are like, listen, I'm getting a feedback that I'm not a good actor or whatever. I'm like, that's fine. Maybe nobody will take you in their film or their play, but if you want to do, nobody can stop you from doing. Like, if it gives you joy, do it. Become a banker and do this. You have to
Hmm.
find a solution. I think this obsession of being, I have to be an artist only, is also not good. Um, you can do whatever. You can always be an artist. Everybody is an artist. I always say everybody is an artist. They haven't got a chance to do it. That's
Yeah,
all.
I mean, because art itself is so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Expression, creation, it's so vulnerable. It takes so much out of you. But also, I think it's really interesting because you transitioned as somebody who was doing theater and who was very interested in it, but also was doing a full-time job in a very
Mm.
conventional, as an engineer in IT, and then
Yeah.
transitioned into this. So I think very interesting because this was something that you decided that, okay, now I can do it full time. And it
Yeah.
wasn't something
Yeah.
that you started off with saying, this is all I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly. You're right. You're quite right. I um, I just want to say a couple of things to that. Number one, I mean, I had to make some life decisions, and I was supported by the fact that I have come from a fairly privileged background. You know,
Hmm.
I come from a background where I didn't have to support parents
Hmm.
financially too much, only a little bit, but not too much at all. You know, I could make this leap. You know, I could be like, hey, I'll shack up with my friends, and because jitna paisa aayega wo mere liye hi hai, I can make my savings.
Hmm.
I don't have to send money back home like a lot of people have to do, perhaps, or I don't have to buy a house on an EMI. So, I mean, number one is that I could become an artist also because I didn't have um, certain burdens that maybe a lot of other people feel. Not to say that people still don't become artists. People still
Yeah.
become artists, but that's number one. And yeah, you're quite right. First, I learned my craft. I did my craft. I while as I was working, I was sort of performing and training and all that. And then finally, I said, got to give this a real shot at being a full time artist, and that's what I did in 2010.
What helps you keep your mental health in check now?
You know, the tangible answer is that I do a gratitude sort of speech, prayer, whatever, every morning after my
Hmm.
riyaz. I kind of spend some time breathing and thanking the universe for giving me so much, uh,
Hmm.
being able to follow my passion. You know, being there's a gratitude speech that I do in the morning, which already starts my day in a where it doesn't matter, then anything that goes wrong sort of doesn't matter. So that really keeps me in check. And the um, sort of knowing that everything is kind of temporary, that everything, whether good or bad, will kind of move on, and one has to just sort of know the fundamentals and get to know the fundamentals of who you are and react from there is sort of more important. And so things that happen, any kind of conflict that comes about, whether it's work conflict or relationship conflict, I'm able to manage that much better because I know somebody is reacting to something and it'll pass. You know, we can get to a calmer position and decide and talk it out. So that helps me maintain my mental health, to say it's fine, like everything. You do your best and enjoy whatever it is you do. And rest is luck. There's so much luck involved. It's not funny. Like, at least in
Yeah.
my profession, there's so much luck involved that it's useless bothering about things.
I also want to bring attention to what you said, like you do riyaz, because that itself
Yeah,
is a practice, a really important
yeah,
practice to, to keep like also it's a really good mental health practice actually.
yeah,
Do you
yeah.
want to
You're right.
talk about a bit about what your riyaz is?
Oh, Marias, yeah. So it's a couple of things. Firstly, is sort of just being physically in shape. So like, it's running or it's like stretching and doing some stretches and kalari or whatever. Then I do a vocal riyaz in the morning, which is just singing a little bit, and yeah, that's about it. And then I meditate and do my gratitude talk. And so that in itself every morning takes about 2 hours. So, and then once
Yeah.
I'm done with it, then I'm like,
So you're like
yeah,
set for the
I'm
week,
good.
man. What's something
Yeah.
that you wish people entering this field of acting, or like basically, I mean, I want to really bring in more acting because it's people facing. So, what is something
Hmm.
that people who would, there's so many of them. Like I remember as a kid also saying, I want to be an actor. So, what is something
Really?
that you should? I think I actually wanted to be a singer, but like, what is something you would tell someone who's like either in the acting profession, like someone basically people facing like that? What is something that you would tell them to protect their mental health?
Work on yourself is most important, and don't take feedback, especially bad feedback, to heart. Look
Mm.
at it as a way to improve. It's easier said than done, but I think it must be done. Often what happens is that when you're receiving, let's say if you're receiving not favorable feedback for your work, you tend to go down that spiral, and you tend to say, oh my God, this, that, why haven't people liked me already and all that. Um, the best thing you can do, the thing I was talking about, Riaz, was that just makes you connect with your art form, and it keeps you, and that kind of shines through, that kind of, eventually it will, shine through. So just to keep your head cool, enjoy it. Ask yourself, are you really in this love with this art form? Are you willing to see? The thing with acting, Subui, whether it's theater or film, is it demands a lot out of you. If you're doing a play, it really sucks you in, and it really, if you're serious about it, it can really take a lot out of you, and it can test you, and it can test your relations and everything. So you have to really ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing? Why am I in love with doing a play? Why am I in love with doing a film? Why? Is it just because I get people to see me? Which could be a childhood trauma thing, because quite sometimes, if you don't feel seen as a child, you tend to go towards the stage because they're like, now people will see me. That's a very common thing with actors, that they didn't get the attention that they wanted, and so now they have it. And so what happens is that once that becomes a sort of a dopamine, every time you just want to go on stage, you don't want to do the work, you don't want to learn lines properly and understand the work, the technicality, train yourself. You just want to go on stage, and the light has to come on, because that fulfills a childhood trauma for you, and that's fine. And quite often I say that's really fine. That's really fine. But know that that's what it is. I have zero problems with people going on stage, and the theater is welcoming to everybody, to a most trained actor, to an untrained actor. From, that the theater doesn't reject anybody. You come, we'll turn the light on, you do your thing, we'll accept you, and go home happy. It's fine. But if you're serious about training, if you really want to give your audiences a flavor of real art and all that, then you have to put in more work, and you have to go beyond the initial charm of people clapping for you or watching you, actually, more than anything else. And that's where people get stuck a little bit. So I think if you identify why is it that you've chosen this art form, what does it do for you, I think the journey becomes easier, uh, because then it's your journey, then it's really your journey, you know um, so my advice would be to slightly investigate, why is it that you want to become an actor? Because people stop at the first answer, which is that because I love acting. I mean, that's okay, that's fine. But why do you love acting? Why? So ask a couple of whys, and then you will get to a place where will make you feel comfortable. And then you're comfortable with rejection, you're comfortable with success. You don't let success go to your head, all that stuff follows. Yeah.
With all of the conversations that I've had, everything has always come back to your purpose. Like because all
Yeah.
the professions are pretty hard.
Yeah.
I spoke to Varun, who's a lawyer, our classmate, and this is also what
Sareen.
he talked about. Yeah, is he also
Ah,
talked
okay,
about
okay.
this? Like purpose. You have to come back to purpose
Yeah.
because it is so hard. All of these professions are so hard, and just knowing your purpose is what actually gets you through. But I think, like with acting, it's even more so because if you're even a marginally good actor, um, then you will get that attention, and it is harder then to understand really why you're doing it and not just keep the superficial, just that.
Absolutely.
What do you do when things get hard?
Now my practice has been largely, it helps me to think that everything is temporary. It helps me to think that I have to stay true, and I have to make sure that from my part I have not wronged anybody, that I could have, that I've not, yeah, that I've been as truthful as I could. And if I lie in the comfort of that, then a lot of conflicts for me, I don't feel as stressed about them as I used to earlier. Arey, why are they thinking like this? Arey, why? Oh, do they think of me like that? It just doesn't bother me anymore, which I'm grateful for, because I've also, in the past few years, I've been trying to align myself more towards my art form, trying to look inwards much more than outwards. So um, I don't blame people for anything, or even if I feel or I've been told that I've been wronged and somewhere, and which I have. I know I'm cognizant of that, but I don't. I feel like uh, it's it's not for me to sort of take revenge for something or whatever. It's a and this is where something more interesting comes in, which is religion, which is basically I find that uh, I'm right now researching a part for a play I'm writing, which is the priest. He's a priest at a church, and for that I'm reading a lot of. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts by pastors and priests who give sermons and talking about the Bible and all that, and and it was interesting to find that a lot of the stuff there was like what I believed in already as a human being. A lot of some of the stuff, like in terms of don't seek revenge. There's going to be a karma, what we have in Hinduism, like karma and all that stuff. So it kind of that kind of spirituality has kind of also helped me to not be um, not seek justice or whatever, and I can resolve conflicts much better now because I'm like, you do the best you can or do the worst you can. I'll just do what I can do.
If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the way your profession handles mental health, what would it be?
People uh, not lowering their self-worth, the idea of self-worth, because of uh, or not bloating, conversely, their idea of self-worth if two people clap for you or and vice versa, if two people don't clap for you and you feel like you're nothing or whatever. um, just that those things go away and people will be just much happier you know
So I guess what you're saying is that people should invest in understanding their value and their self-worth before
Hmm.
they think about.
Yeah, certainly, and I think to sort of yeah, know who, which also takes time. I understand, it's easier said than done, but definitely work in that direction to say, yeah, this is what I am, this is where I am, and this is where I need to go. I need to be better, and it'll be fine.
Do you think that now we're in our 40s, do you think that that has changed anything? Aging?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely having seen the world a little bit now and knowing that it's not always your fault. It's not always something you've done or not done. So I think that helps, sort of knowing. And I've been fortunate also, Subuhi. I must also say I've been fortunate that I have got work. I've had work.
Hmm.
I've performed internationally. I've performed. I just finished a film. So I'm also coming from there where I feel confident also because I've been validated in many
Hmm.
ways. Um, but I've also not got a lot of jobs, acting jobs. I've also not got a lot of writing awards and grants. So I think with age, you become clearer that what you want is to follow the art form. That's really the joy, and you try and make that happen
Go back to the
as much.
purpose.
Back to the purpose, definitely. Yeah.
So, how does playing different characters impact your mental health, especially if it's a difficult character?
The short answer is you have to shield yourself from it. For example, let's take an example. Like let's say you have to play, for the sake of the argument, let's say you have to play Hitler, right?
Hmm.
You're in a play and you're playing Hitler, and who's in his phase of destruction in that period where he just wants all the Jews gone. Not the nicest person, right? And you're playing Hitler, and you've got to kind of tap into the that side of your own personality, and that's the interesting part because what acting does is uh, a lot of times people think acting is pretending, right? They're like, you're pretending, you're only acting. Quite often in our colloquial terms, we colloquially we say, oh, he was acting kara, means he's lying in some way, when it's not the truth. Acting is actually trying to access the truth within you, which means that if I have to play a murderer, I have to sometimes tap into the murderous feelings I might have had in the past. And interestingly, as an actor, when you have those feelings, quite sometimes at the back of your head, you're trying to remember it. You're trying to say, hey, I need to keep this in my stock because I might need it later. You know, it's true. It's true. So that's why you find a lot of actors are little uh, are, unpredictable and sort of annoying sometimes because they have multiple personalities sometimes. I don't mean it in a disorder kind of way, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying they a lot of good actors will be aware of their evil side as well as their nice side, and they know how to shield one from the other. So when you come to playing a part that's, let's say, uh, an evil part or whatever, then you have to be look menacing, and you have to bring that menace, authentically be menacing. So which means you have to have been menacing to somebody at some point in your life. Now that could be when you were a 10-year-old boy trying to bully someone. So you might have to go back to that horrible past of yours where you bullied someone. Maybe you hit your partner at some point. Maybe you did it. And the rage you felt while doing it, and maybe you're playing a character who hits their partner. Uh, Maybe you need to tap into that, and so that gets you have to be careful of that trauma that might bring up. You have to be very careful about it. Um, and that's the shielding you need. That's the craft. That the moment you get into the character who's not you, who's doing some horrible things, let's say, and then you just get out of it and you move on. The interesting thing is that you always have to play every character with empathy,
Mm.
which means that even if I'm playing Hitler, I need to humanize him a little bit to say at the end of the day, he was a product of our society and did horrible things, but is a product of society. If I'm a wife beating character, alcoholic wife beating character, I'm a product of society. I have to still humanize that person. That's where it gets tricky sometimes to say, how do you play an evil person with empathy? And there's a whole lot of debate and literature around that. But it is my actor's job. I owe it to the character to be, because no person thinks that they're bad. I think per se, nobody thinks they think that they deserve, they're right in doing what they're doing. um, and sort of you got to that's where the craft comes in to say how do you play this character, or maybe you just want to show this character as an evil person. That's it. Maybe that's your choice. Then you have an actor's choice there. So you make all these calls, and I think a trained actor in terms of who understands the psychology of characters will be able to make these choices. With untrained actors, so quite often in amateur theater you will see they'll play very difficult parts. I'll be Hitler, school, not school, but maybe college, they'll play difficult parts. They'll play Nathuram Godse, who shot Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, to be able to play Nathuram Godse, you have to really understand the politics of what happened. Why was Nathuram born that way, or not born that way? Like, why did he become that way? That way. But then, as a college student, you might just get into it and say, "Yeah, I'll just be a certain stereotype," and that's fine. Okay, you can do it. But as a professional, you have to really then kind of go into his past and read about him and humanize him first for yourself, and that can be difficult. With film, what happens is you can get away with some stuff because film is also, the medium is coming through camera,
Yeah.
and like the camera can be placed in a certain way that can make your mask look a little more evil. With theater it becomes a little more difficult because theater is a more flattish experience
Mm.
in that sense, and you really have to work harder at being menacing on stage versus in film, because film you can in that sense cheat a little bit and do a lighting a certain way or do a camera angle a certain way, put some kind of music at the back which will already give you that feeling.
Yeah.
But when we're trying to do menacing parts on theater, it's very, very difficult because it's real time, and I have to real time scare you,
Mm.
as an audience member. You have to be petrified of me real time, and to do it, repeat it every night that you're performing. That's tough, and that's where the sort of craft bit comes in, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you don't get a second take with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Related to this again, my last question to you is that now you've played someone like a difficult character, whether it is something that you've
Mm.
experienced yourself, or whether it is something that that just something you just completely disagree with, or like a bad person, or like I don't want to say a bad person, but a character that has
Mm.
done bad things.
Done bad things,
Um,
yeah.
so how do you then at the end of, and I mean I want to ask this in two parts. So the first one is at the end of the show, like the that day's show is over and you've performed. how do you get back into Swetanshu? And also assuming that whether it's a film or any or like a theater, something that's been running for a while and now it's done, it's few months or as long as it has, and now you're saying goodbye to that character. How do you transition back again into like yourself? And is there a
Normal.
difference?
I think one has to remember that doing a play or any art form is a service to the audience, first and
Mm.
foremost. Like you are trying to show something about humanity to a bunch of people who've come to see that, to have that experience, right? So, sorry. Yeah. So, it's one thing is to not get too involved about that, to say that when the night's done, the performance is done, it was a sharing, it was a gift given from you to the audience, and we all had that sharing experience together, and we move on. In fact, I might even ask, quite a few times after watching a film, you'll notice maybe the film has moved you so much that you are unable to leave that character. Forget the actor, that there's a character there who, let's say, you really struck a chord with you, and then now you, after the film is over, that entire day you're thinking about that film and you're like, oh my god, what happened? So what has happened there? What has happened there is that performer has been able to transfer that energy through the screen to you, and you're feeling it now, and you sometimes think about it for days, for months, for
Yeah.
years, right? It stays with you. We say, no, yeah, that performance stayed with me, and it stays with you. So what has really happened there is there's been a transfer of energy there. I might say, will Subuhi go back to being leading her regular life after watching this performance? Like, I'm sure it's affecting her a certain way. So for us, so it's important to know that it was a piece of art that was performed, and to have to enjoy it, to relish it, but to also keep a certain distance from it. You know, distance is extremely important, I think. Um, just from a performance perspective, it's super important to know that there's some distance. Yeah, and you've given the gift, you've given it to other people to now chew on it.
Lovely. And I also just wanted to add, like, people who experience these kind of things, the traumas that they experience, um, theater therapy is really helpful also.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this whole space of welcoming and like, everybody's welcome to come and just give you, that's incredible. So I feel like I
yeah.
want to go and explore this space myself.
Yes, no, certainly. I think, we get caught up with the idea of, a lot of people want to do acting workshops and say, I want to become an actor. Yeah, okay, you can. That's fine. But the real value of the theater is exchange of ideas, exploration of
Hmm.
ideas, challenging yourself. The beautiful part about the theater is that you'll get a diverse group of people coming and performing, people you might not meet on your daily. I have seen people in rooms, in rehearsal rooms, where there are homophobic people with people from the LGBT community, and they've had to negotiate that because this person has grown up being very homophobic, but now he's at the theater, and there's no space for a sort of exclusion theater, right? I mean, you can have debates. Certainly, you can say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, man, but I'm not a supporter of homosexuality. So we'll work together. But I hope you can respect that. You can debate it out and say why, what's the scene. But what happens is what happened.
It's just so
Did I say
absurd.
something?
I'm sorry, I don't agree with your life, but we can work together and
Yeah,
we can talk about it.
we can talk about it later. It's fine. No, because we don't agree about. I mean, this is one example, but we don't agree about lots of stuff about people's lives and all that. But the theater forces you to kind of understand each other at a human level, uh, and that, by the way, can be frustrating. It can be very frustrating because quite a few times plays stop performing after a while because actors can't get along. That also happens, where actors are like, oh, dude, I cannot work with this person because our ideas are different. Our way of working is different. Because remember, there's still people coming to the theater with their own baggage, with their own trauma, with their own insecurities, with their own short fuses, with their own judgments. It's all fair and fun, nice, fun to say, leave judgment at the door and come. But people bring them in. You know, people
course.
still roll eyes. People still roll eyes at other people when they say something and all that. But but the good thing about the theater is that it forces you to get into the conflict zones. You know, it says, and at the end of the day, like I was saying in the beginning, every art form is really an invitation to look inwards. You know, you look at a painting and you're like, why do I not like this? Is it because of this? Is it so? Even in the rehearsal space, any conflict you have is an opportunity to kind of look inwards to say, um, I don't know, was there merit in what somebody else is saying or not? So it teaches you a life skill at the end of the day. You know, it the biggest thing is, like, coming back to the point of saying people want to do acting workshops. Theater can teach you a life skill of listening first and foremost, of challenging your own notions. And I think the most rigid people should do theater workshops. Like,
Yeah.
go and see like there are other people with opinions as strong as yours. And other than abusing or other than getting to fist fights, can you debate somebody? Can you do something else other than, and that's a need of the hour in our country, where we are just getting like,
Discussion. Discussions opposed to
yeah,
debates.
have discussions, or theater based practices are also like role playing, playing it out. That is very cathartic.
Thank you so
I
much for
love that.
taking your time and for just sharing so openly and so beautifully. Um, yeah, I'm.
Okay,
I
thanks.
really
Yeah,
love this episode.
did you? I hope so.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from this episode, and
Oh shit.
a lot of my preconceptions about what the artist space is has been challenged, and I'm really happy about that.
Oh
Also,
really?
yeah, and also I never thought that I would really seriously ever consider, like I want to go and explore this space because it sounds so beautiful and inviting and also terrifying, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but terrifying is good sometimes. Terrifying
Yes.
is good.
Yes.
um, Take care of yourself, but be terrified of certain
Yeah.
things and face it.
Yeah. That's where the growth
Yeah, and this
is.
is the kind of space. That's where the growth is. Yeah, yeah. But I've had a great time talking to you. Thank you so much, and it's yeah, it's also nice to talk to somebody about it, think through it, because sometimes this is not the kind of stuff you're thinking to yourself on a daily basis as such, and sort of it's nice to sort of voice it and gives you a gauge of how much you understand your own craft actually through this
Mm.
podcast. So I've kind of also been able to assess that a little bit to say, where am I not understanding something or where am I understanding something? It's nice. It's nice.